Okay, so this webinar session is undergraduate student unpaid opportunities funding sources. So I am Dr. Cynthia Stewart. I'm the Assistant Director in the Academic Internship Program Manager for the Center for Experiential Learning at Loyola University. I handle all of the academic internships for the undergraduate students. And I'll let my colleague Max introduce himself.
Hi, everybody, and thanks again for joining us today. As Cynthia said, I am Max Halm, and I am the project coordinator within the Center for Experiential Learning. So if you've ever walked into our office to visit anybody, probably came across me first, or if you've participated in the Undergraduate Research and Engagement Symposium at any point, you probably got quite a few emails from me. And then I'll be discussing the Aspire Scholarship today once we get to that point.
So two parts to this webinar is, as Max just mentioned, he will talk about the Aspire Scholarship funding opportunity, and then after he's done, I will discuss the Mellon funding opportunity, which has gone on for the academic year of 2019 going into 2020. So that will be the agenda for today, and then after that we will open up for any questions that you may have. So Max will get started.
Awesome. So first we'll be discussing the Aspire Scholarship, and Aspire stands for All Students Prosper If Resources Exist. And this was an initiative that was identified by actually some student government leaders 3 or 4 years ago. And they reached out to the Office of Financial Aid at Loyola and identified some resources to set aside for this particular scholarship for the next at least 3 years. We're going to pilot it with 3 years first, 1 term each year, including the summer term. And so once they had identified those resources, the Office of Financial Aid and Student Government, they collaborated with us at the Center for Experiential Learning, where we implemented the infrastructure, and we'll be hosting the recruitment process through all this. So if we could proceed to the next slide. I gave you a little bit of background there on it. And the financial award, as I just said, will happen 3 times a year starting this upcoming fall semester. And in the fall semester and in the spring semester for those 3 years, we'll award 6 different students a total of $1,500. And in the summer term for those 3 years, it'll be a total of 8 students receiving $1,500. So if we could go to the website, please. Thank you, Cynthia. The Center for Experiential Learning, we put together a website earlier, or towards the end of the spring semester, which details all the eligibility requirements, the financial award, the timeline, and then has the application as well. We need to switch the view, Cynthia.
1 second. You can share your screen.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. So if you were to go to luc.edu/experiential, right on the homepage, about 3 or 4 entries down, there will be, you'll see the logo that we have here. If you click on that, it will bring you to this webpage assigned specifically to the Aspire Scholarship. And so here you can see a little bit of the background that we just went over. And we'll also highlight some of the eligibility and criteria for selection, which is a fairly simple application process should you be eligible. So first of all, you'll need to submit an application. And then from all those applications that we receive, and we'll go over the application in a second, should you be one of the chosen students to proceed, you will then have to come, well, probably not come into the office given everything that's going on, but conduct a 20 to 30 minute interview over Zoom with either 1 or 2 of us from the Center for Experiential Learning. And to get to that point, you'll have to enroll in a engaged learning course for that particular semester to which you are applying for that award. And this These courses can include academic internships, undergraduate research, public performance, or fieldwork. There's also a fifth engaged learning opportunity, service learning, but unfortunately we cannot include that with this application simply because the premise of service learning is that it is unpaid. One additional criteria that you'll need to meet for application is that you'll have to have secured an unpaid service opportunity that corresponds with that engaged learning opportunity to which you have applied. And the final piece of criterion that you'll need to meet is the demonstration of financial need. And the way we collect that is through the Office of Financial Aid, through what you've supplied through your FAFSA. That doesn't necessarily, if you don't demonstrate any financial need through your FAFSA specifically, that doesn't necessarily disqualify you from consideration, but there will be an opportunity in your application to make the case for why you'd still be a good candidate for one of the awards. And at the bottom of the page, you can see where we have our initial timeline for this fall 2020 award. Applications are already opened. They opened up before the end of this past spring semester, and they will close, I believe that's the end of the first week of the fall 2020 semester, August 28th, 2020. We've not identified yet when we'll be launching the applications for spring and summer 2021. We're gonna try to pilot these initial dates first to see if they work for everybody. So if we go back to this middle section and hit the applications, it should bring us to the initial application form. And so here again, you'll start off again with a reminder of some of the criteria that you have to meet to be eligible. And you want to read all this thoroughly first. We have it set up in a way so you don't end up getting to the end and realizing that you might not be qualified for that particular term. So once you get through that, we'll ask you again to agree that you meet all of the individual criteria for this award. And an additional one that we hadn't included on there, but we have included on the application, is that you are willing to complete a learning portfolio in education, which we have a colleague within the Center for Experiential Learning, Brody Tate, who can assist you with all those needs. And then we also ask that students participate in that year's Undergraduate Research and Engagement Symposium, which this year will be held on Saturday, April 24th. This past year we did it virtually, so it was a bit of a mix-up from the traditional in-person symposium. But again, we can assist you through all of those discussions as well. Here we ask students to reflect or demonstrate their financial need. And here's the opportunity where if your FAFSA comes back and says that you have already met your full tuition obligation, that doesn't necessarily disqualify you from applying for the Aspire Scholarship or even being selected from it. But here's an opportunity to say, like, even though I have $0 immediate tuition need, you have the opportunity to say, I'm working 2 full-time jobs, I'm a caretaker for my sibling, and it's really hard for me to take on an additional unpaid internship opportunity right now. So here's where you'd be able to demonstrate that. And just for sake of time, I'm just going to put something simple there. And here's probably the easiest part of the application, is just putting in your basic information. I'm just putting in mine right now because I can't proceed to the next page without doing so. Once you proceed, we're brought to a page that's specific to your current engaged learning opportunity. So here's where you get to select what you might be participating in that particular term. We'll select academic internship. Here you list the course. I'll do Psych 390. And then here, paid or unpaid. Even if you do select paid, here's your opportunity to identify what kind of compensation you might be receiving. If it's a full salary or hourly wage or anything, that will disqualify you. But some students are receiving compensation in the form of maybe travel stipends. That would still mean that you're qualified to apply for qualify to apply and potentially receive that award. So here, just be honest and upfront with that, because it very well could work in your best interest. Here, you want to list your organization. I can't think of a psych internship right off the top of my head, but
Advocate Hospital.
Advocate. All right. Thank you, Cynthia. And then here, it's just a very brief opportunity for you to describe in no more than 200 words what you're doing with that particular engaged learning experience. Nothing too advanced for that, just 200 words or less. And here, the second to last page, we ask that you identify any extracurricular activities that you might be partaking in with that particular semester. So we don't want to hear things particularly from the previous summer in high school, things that you plan to do later on in that school year, but what you're immediately involved with. That will help give us more of a scope of how stretched you are on time between classes, registered student organizations, in addition to what you're doing with your engaged learning opportunity. And then here, we just have some boilerplate text that we ask that everybody agree to before they submit their application. Here, this initial text is from the Center for Experiential Learning, where we ask all recipients to provide a photo, biography, and description of their engaged learning opportunity should you be selected. And then the second group of text is from the Office of Financial Aid, where that's just a requirement of submission of paperwork that we'll need to submit to them, or that you'll need to submit to us for us to submit to them, so that you may receive the award. And just for clarification, the award, the scholarship wouldn't come in the form of like a personal check. It would be something immediately applied to your balance on Locus. So you could use it for textbooks, you can use it for tuition, but it wouldn't be something that would be immediately deposited into your bank account. So once you hit submit, it should, I think my internet's just a bit slow right now. Yep, so you should get a confirmation right there on that final page that it was received by us. And then once our deadline passes on August 28th, we'll review all the applications, select a number of students to come or meet with us via Zoom to further discuss their interest in the scholarship. So with that being said, I think I've covered everything on my end. Does anybody have any questions right now that they might have about the scholarship?
For the scholarship, do you have to be enrolled in a class that ties to whatever engaged learning that you're doing, or can it not be connected to any classes that you're taking in the fall?
Yep, so you have to the criteria is that you are partaking in an engaged learning opportunity, either the internship, undergraduate research, field work, or public performance, and then you're enrolled in a course that immediately corresponds to that opportunity.
Okay.
So for instance, if you were interning at, doing an academic internship at Advocate Hospital, a corresponding class might be Psych 390 for that, but you'd have to do it in tandem with one another.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, of course. If there weren't any other questions, you also feel free to email me. I think my email was maybe, I don't know if it's on that first slide or not, but it's available on the website, and I'll obviously be around if you want to send me a chat as well.
Okay, thanks, Max, for that information.
Thank you.
So to go back to Rachel, to your question, yes, all of these opportunities that we are sharing with you all today, you have to be in an engaged learning course. So as Max mentioned, that's either academic internship course or undergraduate research or field work or performance. So you have to be in one of those 4 areas in order to apply for any of the funding sources that we're talking about on today. So, all right. So if you are in an unpaid academic internship, similar to what Max was talking about for Aspire, will apply for the Mellon, but there's a different criteria. So one of the things is definitely that you're working at an academic internship. It could be virtual, it could be remote, or it could be in person. And you're also in an engaged learning course, as we've already discussed. With the Mellon Foundation, which is similar to what Max was stating for Aspire. For Aspire, there are 6 students. For the Mellon Foundation, there are 10 students that are selected. The difference is the same amount, the $1,500, and it's for the fall semester. And we won't know until later until the fall semester if this will be available for students for the spring 2021. So the requirements is, as I've already mentioned, you have to be enrolled in an academic internship course. The internship has to be unpaid. There's an application form that is similar to what Max showed you all about the Aspire. That form has to have a couple of revisions to it. And the deadline for the Mellon Foundation is a lot later than the Aspire. But you will also have to also write an essay as well explaining why you believe that you're a good candidate for this funding. What is also different is if you are selected for the Mellon Foundation funding, that you are one of the 10 students that are selected, you would also have to submit 3 reflection papers from your academic internship course. So within that, that means that within your course, your professor may have you write reflection papers throughout the semester. There are some professors that have students do like a capstone project or a paper at the end of the semester. And if you're selected for this funding, then we could discuss ways that you could break up those reflection papers in a different format if you're not doing consistent reflection papers throughout the semester. One other thing that's required is all students that are doing an academic internship, majority of them should be doing an internship learning agreement. That is an agreement between you, the faculty member, and the site for which you're interning. So if you do not have that as part of your department, I can supply one of those learning agreements for you, or we can have a discussion with your faculty member in terms of how we could do a learning agreement. If that's not possible, then we can we could work something out. Similar to the Aspire is we're looking, all of the recipients of any of these funding sources would also do a presentation during our Weekend of Excellence during the Undergraduate Research and Engagement Symposium. As Max already mentioned, this semester due to COVID, we had to move to a virtual symposium instead of having it on campus, and students were able to do PowerPoints, they were able to do learning portfolios, or they were able to do poster presentations, and they were able to record those. So if you are selected, that's one of the requirements that you have to do. Even if you're awarded the funding for the fall semester, you would then prepare your presentation to do that in April of 2021. And that's all things that will kind of just walk you through all of that once the 10 students are selected for this funding source. The other difference between Aspire and the Mellon is we also do look for get a report from the financial aid in regards to the financial need base, but the difference between the Aspire and the Mellon is Aspire is the money goes towards your tuition, whereas with the Mellon Foundation funding, you will receive the $1,500 through the accounts payable department through Loyola. And then you are free to use that funding in whatever way seems feasible for you. So if you want to buy books, if you want to use it for housing, whatever you want to use that money towards, it's your money to use towards anything that's feasible for you. So it will not go towards your tuition automatically like Aspire. So those are the requirements, in order to get the Mellon Foundation funding. So similar to, as Max talked about, there's an application process. So similar to the Google form that Max showed you, it's the same similar form that will be used for the Mellon Foundation funding. And once all of the applications are turned in and once they're all reviewed, and then we will narrow down those students that will rank, and then after that, students will be contacted for a virtual interview. It will be an interview that will last no more than 30 minutes. And it's a way of looking at what you talked about on your application, but it's another good way to be able to personally talk to you and to be able to hear why you believe that you would be a good candidate for this funding. And it's another great way just to kind of get to know you just a little bit better and just to hear from you, just ways that you believe that you're a good candidate. And then once we do the interviews, then after that, it's another review process of the students who have been interviewed, and then it's another ranking that takes place from that. And then after that, we would then find the 10 top finalists for the funding, and then those students would then be contacted to state that they have been the finalists for the funding. And once they are given that notice, then there's an email with required paperwork for accounts payable, paperwork that I would need within my department in order to make sure that everything's needed for the funding source. So here's the timeline or the deadlines. So the applications will open on September 15th. And then usually what we do is we send out emails. We have an opportunities newsletter that comes out within our department that we will be sharing this with students. So look out for those. If you're not part of our opportunities newsletter, at the end will be our contact information. Please email us and say, I'm not receiving the opportunities newsletter, and I would like to be able to receive that. They come out twice a month, and within that opportunities is opportunities like the Aspire, opportunities like the Mellon. If there are any internship opportunities or service learning opportunities, it's a great way for you to find out opportunities that you may not have been aware of. So it's good to kind of get those in your email box and just to be able to see opportunities that you may not have been aware of. So the applications will come out September 15th. The deadline to submit will be October 5th at 9 a.m. And then the virtual interviews will take place on the week of October 19th. And then by the week of November 9th, students will be notified if they're a finalist. And during that same week, students will begin to fill out all of the accounts payable paperwork. And within that paperwork, I will then submit that paperwork to accounts payable. Once all of that has been approved through accounts payable, they will then, you will either have the choice to have the funding deposited directly into your bank account, or you can have a check mailed to you. So that's something within the paperwork that you will make that decision. But once accounts payable receives all of your paperwork and everything is approved, then it will take almost between 3 to 6 weeks for you to get your funding. So sometimes it might come quicker, it just kind of depends, but it normally takes between 3 to 6 weeks. So the goal is before the semester is over with, that you should be able to receive your money by that time. So that's a quick overview. So we would like to open it up for any questions that you have for Max and I. So if there are no questions, this is our contact information. So that's our email address for Max and I. Feel free to email either one of us in regards to the 2 funding sources that we just talked about, or you can email experiential@luc.edu. On the website by next week, the information that I just shared, it will be up on our website by next week. So similar information that Max just shared about Aspire, the timeline and all of the information about the Mellon funding will also be on the academic internship website under Center for Experiential Learning. Any questions?
I see we got a thank you in the chat box. You're very
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks to both of you all. Thanks for joining.
And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I think that went well.
Yeah, it was